of 2022 has been very different than other years. It really has. Many of our absolute biggest stars, and I realize that Nate Diaz is about to come back, but there's rumblings that Nick Diaz is about to come back. All of our bigger stars, Jon Jones, Stipe, Francis, for whatever reason you want to come up with. But my point that all of the biggest stars are not booked, are not being put on cards, are not the ones that's headline. It's very interesting. It's very interesting, guys. Let me tell you something that I heard today. I want you guys to really stay with me here, okay? But Bo Nickal has come out and said that he would fight Israel Adesanya tonight. Now, he would. I don't want to back and forth on whether he could do well with Izzy. I'm speaking to the attitude of an undefeated, even if 2-0, prospect who has not been tainted by the business of the sport, who only knows about competition, competing with anybody, living with the result as a way of making your dream come true. That's where Bo's at today. Now, if we're to save this interview 4 years from now, if everything goes swimmingly for Bo, it would be very unusual if that were still his attitude. If 4 years from now, when Bo breaks into the pay-per-view business and all of a sudden he's got fancy cars and more fancy friends and all of a sudden he's still willing to fight anybody, give absolutely anybody an opportunity, he doesn't start saying things like, you haven't earned it. You don't deserve. I don't feel good. I need more money. If he doesn't do those things, it would make him an anomaly. It's the life of a fighter. However, a 3-time NCAA champion versus a guy who's never wrestled before. History says Bo could win. Just what history says. What if you did that with a guy like Paddy the Baddy, who I think his skills, I think he's something special. What if you did that with a guy like Chimaev? What if you gave them all title fights? Just say, and let's say they all won. Let's just say they all won. Now you have your champion who moves the needle, who's easy to work with, who is a true competitor, who's making $25,000 a night because they've only done it 2 or 3 times. Don't think you have to correct me on the numbers, guys. Trying to prove a bigger point, that we don't truly know who the best is. We have no way to know who the best is because we don't have a competitive architecture. It's not a situation where everybody can raise your hand and you break it down through a straight line bracket. You start with your preliminary matches and your round of 16, your quarterfinals, your semifinals. We don't have that. So we have guys within every division, including guys that aren't even signed, who might be the best. But they can't get their opportunity until they prove X, Y, and Z. And with the proof of X, Y, and Z, up goes the money. And when the money goes up, their attitude changes and their willingness to compete goes away. What would happen if we hijacked that system? I mean, what really would happen to our sport if the top guys, the needle movers, the champions, were easy to work with and wanted to compete? One thing that I feel as though Volkanovski, I don't think Volkanovski gets credit for anything. I think he gets recognized as being the best. I think that championship belt recognizes his level of success, but I don't think he gets credit. What he did to step in against Max Holloway on short notice, his greatest rival on short notice, and he was begging for the opportunity. He just wanted a quick turnaround. This is what he does the more times he can get in there. The fact that he is begging for an opportunity as the undefeated, greatest ever in a weight class, reigning world champion, he's begging to just be a backup fighter. He just wants the opportunity. He wants to work hard. He wants to train. He wants to, know there's a finish line out there, know when he needs to peak, show up, do his job. It's very hard to have a champion with that mindset. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we've ever had a champion with the competitive and willing mindset of Volkanovski. But if you were to set him out and push him aside, the guys at the top are like little elitists. The top 5 guys get this little elitist club, and they're only going to play with one another. What would happen if we hijacked that whole system? Because what I'm saying is extremely true. You don't know who the best guy is. But that's the same with the pundits and the media. Now, to get into a world title fight, you must have what's called the mandate of the masses. People, that's got to be a piece of the pie. Here's my record. Here's my skills. Here's who I beat. Here's what my ranking is. You got to have all these things. But another piece of the pie that nobody discusses is the people must say, yes, he's the one. So what would happen if you hijack that? You only got to do it one night. You got to make sure you're right. You got to bring in a guy like Bo Nickal who's going to debut and go win a world championship. You got to make sure you're right or you're going to look foolish. But if you do it and you bring in that true competitor, the guy that's making the least amount of money, just by example, the guy that wants the most opportunities. And guys, this has been tested. There was a guy who had never fought within the UFC. He debuted, and his next fight was for the world championship. His name was Anderson Silva. But the company had seen enough. They saw it on footage. They saw it on highlights. There was a reputation out there. They had seen enough. And the sitting champion is kind of looking around going, what are you talking about? Sitting champion's got a good idea of who he's going to fight. He's got that narrowed down to 3-4 guys and whose name comes out of the hat. But every single day he can kind of practice for one of these guys. He's all of a sudden got a guy that's not even signed to the organization. And that guy is now going to be the champion's next opponent in a main event. And it happens to be for the title. Like, it's rather unheard of. I'm just sharing with you. It has happened. I just offered you the example. But the day that Cain Velasquez got in the UFC, he was 5-0. Cain Velasquez could have been the UFC champion the day that he debuted. He just wasn't given that opportunity. We have a number of guys like that. BJ Penn, when he debuted in the UFC, was good enough to be the champion. He didn't get any better from his debut to the day he fought for a championship, and he ran through everybody, including to get the belt. There are guys like that, and I'm all for the fast track. I don't believe in the concept of once we get to the UFC, this guy's got to have 5 fights, and this guy has to have close to that. If this guy's won 4 in a row, then this guy's got to have at least won 3 in a row. I don't believe in that. I think that's a very real thing that commissions look for, and matchmakers need to do a responsible job until you get there. Once you're there, we're dead even. I do not care if you've had 3 fights versus a guy that's had 20 fights. If they're in the octagon, once you're there, we're even. And there needs to be a way to get these guys an ability to compete. And we're seeing things change within our sport right in front of us. 2022 and the matchmaking and the cards and who's going at top of the bill is unlike any other year that we have ever seen. And there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to change the modus operandi, but you've got to see it and you've got to start demanding it. 2022 is nothing I would have predicted, but now that we're here and now that we're living it, and now we're seeing who's on top of the bills, but we're seeing those arenas fill up anyway. There's another way to do MMA. It's playing out right in front of us. So no matter what my suggestion is, as unlikely as it might seem, if I would have told you the way we are going to present the sport for 2022, but if I would have told you this in 2019, you'd have told me I was wrong.